Hey folks, Andy here. 2015 is behind us. We're about halfway through the so-called awards season, and it's time for me to go ahead and do my 2015 year in movie review. May 15th brought with it the best movie, in my opinion, and many others' opinions, of 2015, Mad Max Fury Road. I was surprised to say that I think this was the best movie of 2015, but it really was. From the very beginning, that movie has you on the edge of your seats, waiting to see what happens next. Even in subsequent viewings, I've had the same feeling. Even though I know what's going to happen, I still have that anticipation of what's coming up. The movie is beautiful, cinematography-wise, visual design-wise. The sound is amazing. The music is amazing. Charlize Theron's acting is pretty awesome. Tom Hardy doesn't really have to do a whole lot of acting, because even though the name is Mad Max Fury Road, really this was the Furiosa movie. And I think everybody knows that, including Tom Hardy. Immortan Joe, the main villain of the movie, I think will go down in history as one of the most iconic bad guys of the 21st century, or at least of the 2010s. I don't know what else to say other than that this movie deserves Best Picture, but it probably won't get it, because we know the Academy. They nominated it, that's all they're going to do. May 22nd, Tomorrowland. I ended up seeing this one on Blu-ray later. I didn't get to see it in the theater. I wanted to, just never got around to it. I ended up borrowing a Blu-ray from a buddy at work, and I ended up buying it myself on Blu-ray after that. Even if this movie didn't do well, I loved it for the message it puts forward, in that science, viewed through the lens of hopefulness, can save the world. Science on its own does nothing. It actually can make things worse if in the wrong hands. But through the eyes of the hopeful, science can do well. And that's actually part of the arc that George Clooney, who I forgot to mention earlier, his character is in the movie. He's previously involved with Tomorrowland. He's back home, and he's bitter, and he's lost his hope in humanity, science, the whole thing. And through his character's journey, we learn the lesson that hope in science is a good thing. Science without hope, not so much. That message alone is a good reason to see it. If nothing else, you get the nostalgia factor because they bring in a little tie to the old World's Fair and It's a Small World ride. Definitely give it a check. Check it out. If you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And if you hate it, you're going to think I'm crazy. So I probably am. But I'm crazy in a hopeful way. And that's what this movie is about. And that's why you should watch it. All right, June 12th brought us Jurassic World, which is the fourth installment of the Jurassic Park series. I think Jurassic World is the first one that I know of that doesn't draw from the novels at all. The first Jurassic Park obviously was an adaptation of the novel of the same name. Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, again, an adaptation of Jurassic Park, The Lost World. And Jurassic Park 3, while an original story, drew on elements from the first Jurassic Park that were not brought into the movie, the original Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park 4 is the first one that I think has no basis in the novels and is based entirely on the previous movies, focusing specifically on the first and original Jurassic Park. The movie kind of plays like a tribute or a love story to that movie. Love story may be a little strong. A tribute to that movie. It's definitely working on that same feeling of wonderment and awe and basically trying to re-imbue us with the understanding that we need that we become too jaded in these things, like the big fancy CG movies. And really, I think it works. It's not as good as the original Jurassic Park. I don't think it ever will be. But it's a good movie. It's a good way to introduce the franchise to a new generation if you don't want to jump all the way back to the original and start from scratch. July 1st, Terminator Genisys. Remember how I said we get another android? Here it is. Obviously, the Terminators in Terminator Genisys are androids. Or rather, they're cyborgs. Questionable whether or not the ones with the liquid metal are actually cyborgs, seeing how there's a liquid metal, not actually flesh. The Terminators themselves, the T-100 series, T-101s, they're cyborgs. But the point being, more androids, more robot humanoids in cinema in 2015. Terminator Genisys jumps back to the original Terminator and changes the whole history. It's more of a time travel story than it is a Terminator story, in that essentially there are a lot of things that happen in the movie that change the timeline of the original movies. If you think of the first Terminator as being the first alteration of the timeline, Terminator 2 is the second alteration because, again, they stop everything from happening. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, is a continuation of Terminator 2, which doesn't really alter that timeline. Terminator Salvation, again, doesn't change the timeline. And then Terminator 5, which is Terminator Genisys, is another alteration of the timeline. And I believe it takes place in a timeline alternate from the future of Terminator Salvation. I think something happened after the events of Salvation that went back and changed the past of the original Terminator, so it's a whole new timeline. It's confusing. They admit that it's confusing, but it's still enjoyable. It's a good action movie. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger back as the Terminator, which is what we really wanted. They did a good job portraying young Sarah Connor again, even though obviously completely different actress. Same with Kyle Reese, completely different actor, still did a good job. In fact, the very beginning of the movie, they replicate the beginning of the original Terminator, almost shot for shot, which was really fun. Go check it out. It's not, brilliant, but it's good. It's entertaining. Minions. July 10th brought us another installment of the Despicable Me series. This time it's pretty much a prequel in that it tells the history of the Minion characters and puts them basically in the 1970s for the most part of the movie, where they're trying to win over the supervillainess of that time, their big boss. Three of them had ventured out into the world to find themselves a boss. And I don't want to ruin too much of the story. It's fun. It's not as great as the original two Despicable Me movies, which I think is why they're actually, from what I hear, going to make a Despicable Me 3, which should be fun. But it's more fun with the Minions. It's a good popcorn flick. Enjoy it with the kids. If you've got kids. I don't have kids, but I'm sure kids would enjoy it too. Because I enjoyed it. So give it a shot. It's fun. Nothing special. If you want special, go watch the original Despicable Me. That was special.